you give one break and no one comes back.
Yeah.
You know, you're like,
Only the 1%.
yeah, only.
Wait, like the 25? Right.
That is.
That's right.
Okay, so let's get back to business. And I want to start with some of the questions from our folks at home. Yes, we are back. And yes, we are recording. And we had a question before we left. Can the buyer's fee, can the buyer's mortgage, can a buyer, I'm assuming that's what this question is, can the buyer finance their fee into the mortgage? And the answer is no.
Oh, USDA.
USDA.
Appraised higher.
Well,
Yes, you can.
Well, if the house price is higher, let's let the seller pay for it and it's a clean deal.
Yes.
No. So that's one of the negotiations. And here's your next thing. We've got to become better at negotiating. Because we are not a negotiating society. I mean, we don't negotiate. You don't go to the store and negotiate gallon of milk at the Harris Teeter. They think you're nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it says $4.50. I'll give you $3. I'll buy two.
Yeah, gonna expire in 3 days.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's not happening. So if you go to other countries and you travel the world, you begin to realize other cultures, they almost get insulted if you don't negotiate. And so as a society, we're not good at this. We've got to get better. And teaching the ability to negotiate to other humans, it all comes back to relationships. It all comes back to communication. But my key to negotiating with anyone is you must know more than whoever you're negotiating with every day. And anytime I'm walking into a negotiation, I must know more than anybody in the room to win. So we've talked about the buyer's fee. Let me look, I'll get your question. Hang on. Any other questions that have popped up? Nope. If y'all can't hear something, just drop it in the chat. Now, question. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to make sure that it's correct. It's only a USDA one. And only if it appraises more than the sales price. The value comes in.
So on a
That's it. That's all.
And if they are not,
wait a minute, for them at home, on a USDA loan,
They will allow.
they will allow the buyer's fee to be financed into the loan amount as long as the house appraises for enough.
Yes, yes,
So,
because it's 100%. Yes, it's 100%.
because it's 100% loan.
Enough or more? Or more, like if
Bills
it's got a.
Yeah, so the value has to be.
The
exceeding-
value-
Okay, so let's say, let's just use $100,000.
$100,000 house,
And it
and we
comes
had
in
a-
at 115.
yeah,
But
and
your contract, the buyer's paying $100,000.
So they can finance that.
they can
Kind of
finance
like
it.
the.
Yes.
the
See
VA.
your mortgage expert.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, can a VA buyer pay a buyer's agency fee? The room said,
Yeah.
yes, now they can because they have done that. And I think I have a US says, but with the USDA appraiser, you wouldn't know the appraisal amount until the end.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's it. No, no.
All right. So if there's a big hole in the road that everybody keeps driving around, and that hole in the road is the buyers need to pay their buyer's agent. We got to figure out how to have the seller pay it. Well, why don't you just get the buyer to pay it? I mean, why don't you just get the buyer to pay it? And here's the always the answer. The buyers don't have the money. Want to bet?
Yeah.
They sold a house in California. They're moving here with cash. Do they have enough to pay you? Yeah, they do. They sold a house in Raleigh and they're moving here. Do they have enough to pay you? Yes, they do. So we learned in COVID, because for years, those of us who've been around a while, we always said, well, the VA buyer, you know, they don't put any money down because they don't have any money. And COVID hit, prices sky, and veteran buyers have plenty of money.
They did.
Because they've been, I mean, they've been schooled, they've been trained. I have a nephew who's just got out of the military. I've watched that cat for the last 20 years. He doesn't spend a dime. He's banking it, he's buying houses, they got money. I'm like, dude. So don't assume that they don't have the money. And now we got to talk through one other thing, and then we're going to talk about how you get them to pay. Yes, ma'am.
What do you suggest if the buyer, for instance, a first time home buyer does not have the money to buy?
So the question is, if we're working with a first time home buyer and we assume, or we find out, they simply just don't have the money to pay us a fee. Should you have a buyer counseling session with the buyer and say, how would you like to pay this fee? Would you like the seller to pay this fee out of the proceeds of the loan? If so, then what you're asking me to do is search for houses where the seller will pay the fee. Is that what you're telling me to do? We have a county next door. I got calls from them and they said, you know, we don't have buyers with this kind of money. Okay, well, you've just limited what they can purchase. Just like a USDA buyer or a VA buyer or a first-time home buyer's money and all that. Will first-time home buyers get hurt in this deal? Yeah, there's no doubt. Minorities, they're gonna get hurt. People, anybody on the edges of the marketplace, they're gonna get hurt.
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am.
Would that be considered steering?
What? Steering to satisfy the needs of your client? No. Steering is racial.
Yeah.
So we're only gonna show houses in this neighborhood because you're, you know, yeah, white, black, whatever. That is technically steering. When a client asks me to find, it's me the exact, here's your new buyer presentation. I need a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1-story where the seller will pay the fee. Find the criteria that match my client. That's exactly right. So it becomes a criteria. It's the same thing as find me a 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a 2-car garage that I can afford. Same thing. So now we got to take you to the mortgage company and find out how much money do you have to put down? Can you get money from your parents? Where's the money coming from? It's time to learn to negotiate with your clients before we ever get in the car. We're back to your buyer counseling session. We're gonna need a copy of that before we go.
One quick question.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
you said earlier that the commission can't be listed in the MLS. How will you find out if the seller?
You gotta call
Her question takes me right where we're supposed to be. She said, and the question is, you were reading my outline. How do we know if the seller will pay a fee? Please go to the contract that says, well, in the classroom, it is the Form 220. Those of you at home, it's the Form 220 Cooperating Compensation Agreement. This is a form that's been around forever. It's just been altered. It's now perfect, and it'll be perfect until next year when they change it again. But it's the best you got right this minute. And it's shorter than the other forms. We're qualified to fill in all the blanks and all that sort of stuff. They even asked at home, how will we find out what homes offer compensation? Do we call everyone in these price range? Well, let's do this form and then we'll answer that specifically. All right, so this form is a form that we have used for years. You do realize that if an agent comes from outside your multiple listing service, you have absolutely no compulsion to pay them. You have to reach an agreement. Now, when we did data merge with the Triangle and data merge with Canopy, which makes us the largest MLS in the state, by the way, you know that. And Raleigh cannot see Canopy and Canopy cannot see Raleigh, but we can see them both. we signed, the association, your association signed cooperation and compensation agreements with both parties, so you're covered. But if they come in here from the coast, or they come in here from the mountains, or they come in from some other end of the state, and they're not part of one of those 3 MLSs, you don't have to pay them. There's no guarantee. The guarantee was through your MLS. Well, that's gone. That's gone. This form becomes your next best friend. So at your next listing appointment, if your seller agrees to pay a cooperating compensation to a buyer's agent, I would get them to fill this form out. So it says the seller, yep, buyer, leave it blank, property, 123 Happy Lane. The fee, the seller or the listing firm, not both, that says or, check one or the other. The seller or the listing firm agrees to pay the selling firm cooperating compensation as follows: either a percentage of the sales price, or a flat fee, or other. Now, people forget other, but I've been in this business a while. I sold a property years ago. I earned a boat.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I earned a boat. I had a fee coming. Buddy of mine was the cross sale. He and I grew up together, and he had a John boat. I had always wanted his John boat. And he goes, Zan, I owe you X amount of dollars. Would you like to have that or my boat? I went, I get a trailer hitch on my car. I'll see you. I got that boat. Both of my children, well, Louisa learned to ski behind that boat at White Lake. It had a 25 for it. You know, but you can do that. So if all the parties agree, payment of the fee, terms, yes, merger, yes, all that stuff. Now, this is your new key. So you list the property, you can put it on your website, and you can attach this fee to it. You can email, or this form, the 220. So I can go to your website and I can see these are the houses that have a 220, and I can download it and go show the property. And hang on. And if my buyer likes it, all I have to do is stick my buyer's name in there and we got a contract. Now, the attorney last week said something interesting about this form. This is an agreement between the seller and the buyer.
Or, I said or.
Or the listing firm and the buyer. So this is a guarantee that this will be paid to the buyer and buyer's agent. Now, where are you going to put this form? On your website, on Facebook link, on in the front yard, put them in the house. You can put them anywhere you can imagine. Fly them by airplane, throw them out of, they can paper the town, do all that sort of stuff. Yes, sir.
Do you think we should put something in the private agent remarks that says refer to website for additional listing details? Something like cue them in to go there?
Can you say, go to our website and find out more details? And the room said, yes, absolutely. Or, as long as you say it, don't mention commission. Yeah, don't say, go to my website to find out just how much I'll pay you. Wait, I'm on a roll. But the association, your MLS on August the 1st is gonna add a seller compensation fee. And that's a yes, no toggle. Concessions, seller concessions. Thank you for correcting me. Seller's concessions after August the 1st, and it'll be yes or no. So if a listing says seller concessions, yes, what should you do?
Probably go in there.
Probably go in there and call them. Yeah. Call me. What's that song? We can all sing it. Call me, baby. Song. Anyway. I do not get paid to sing. So, but you cannot attach this to documents in the document manager. You cannot put this in the MLS. You can't put this in the IDX feed. You had a question.
My website is attached to the MLS, so.
All right. Your website is attached to the MLS. That means you're getting an IDX feed from the MLS. All right.
So I can't do it.
You cannot do it in the IDX feed. You can post these on your company website in another area. But you cannot go into the IDX feed on your website and attach these to, you cannot alter the IDX feed. You cannot alter the IDX feed. Yes.
I was gonna ask what he was saying, could you try, see website for additional documents? Or that could be able to on request.
Well, your documents should be in Document Manager. The question is,
But you can't put that document in the document.
you cannot put this document in Document Manager.
So,
Don't get frisky. I'll just tell you like my accountant tells me, if it walks like a duck and acts like a duck, and sounds like a duck, and looks like a duck, it's probably a duck. Don't get squirrely. I have somebody else that said, well, as soon as I list one, I'm just gonna email the 200 agents that I know sell in this region and attach this form.
That's what. yes.
Okay,
do not want
that's good. You-
500 emails.
So-
Yeah, how many emails a day? I mean, we list 12,000 properties a year.
Yeah.
Are you gonna get 12,000 emails? I mean, that sort of stuff has got to sift itself out. How are you gonna communicate this? I have companies who are setting up a website, and I wanna come back and clarify this. One company can set up one website for their agents only to post houses that will pay a cross-sale commission. Now, here's your problem. All your sellers are not gonna pay. So are you gonna discriminate against the sellers who refuse to pay a cross-sale commission? You better be careful.
Yeah.
Because if you set up, the buyer-friendly houses website, now you've discriminated against all your sellers who refuse to pay. So be careful in your marketing.
Does that not apply to the people that are in the MLS, not in the MLS? If, like, you don't wanna pay them because they're not in the MLS, but you're not letting your client have a chance to be bought by them? Does that make sense?
Where I'm tired. Say it again.
It's the same thing, like earlier we were talking about, like, if they're not in the MLS, we don't have to work with them, we don't have to pay them.
An agent who comes from outside your MLS does not have to be paid.
So that is not discriminating, or not discriminating, but like, that doesn't seem like the best interest for your client, like if you got.
My client is a buyer or a seller? Your listing?
Right,
All right. Her question is, I have a listing. Isn't it hurting my seller not to cooperate with agents from outside our
Right.
MLS? Is that your question?
right, I mean.
Well,
it's-
sure.
That's discriminating against them, so why would they have this? do
Sure.
that?
Well,
I mean, it could be costing yourself a sale.
you could be costing yourself a sale. Absolutely. Which brings me to our next question. Why should the seller pay a fee?
To get the house sold.
You get the house sold.
Yeah.
Question first.
So now this cooperating compensation agreement
220.
is from the seller to the seller's agent. Who
Nope.
is, this is for the seller to the buyer
Buyer and
agent?
the buyer's agent.
Okay. 'Cause I was
This
saying,
guarantees you will get paid.
the split after the compensation is discussed between the seller and the listing agent.
Right. This is the listing agent went to the listing. They contracted with the seller to sell the property and pay me a fee and allow part of that fee to go to a buyer's agent.
And that's.
I would have this signed right then and there that says, let me publish this. And now, when you get it, it'll be all filled out with the listing firm and the agent and the seller has signed it and all that, and this side will be blank. Well, let's go look at the house. Well, they hate the house. This is worthless. They love the house. We want to make an offer on the house, sign here. Now, you can finance because the seller's gonna pay the fee, like it's always been. And
Think quicker, more helpful.
yes, just.
Guys,
But the ML, I mean, we had this, we already had this system worked out through the MLS. The problem is the lawsuit screwed up 50 years of free market
But
internet.
not to agree in a buyer agency, how much they're gonna pay you.
Right, that's what I'm.
Right. So now we come back to the hole in the middle of the road. Before you can ever show this property to a prospective buyer, you have to have agreed with the buyer what your fee will be. paid by the buyer. Now, the buyer can say, well, I don't want to pay you that much. Well, their fees are negotiable. We can work it out. Or I stand on my fee and see you later. You know, go call somebody else. I'm sure somebody else will work
So
cheaper
you
than I.
agree to a fee, the seller of the property that you are selling them doesn't pay a fee, and then at the end, they don't pay it. What? Okay.
All right.
The buyer-
She's back to her original question, which is,
Yeah.
what if the buyer refuses to pay you? Sue them.
Well, who's really gonna
What if
do
the
that?
seller refuses to pay you?
Who's really good, and like I was telling them when we were having this discussion.
All right, wait.
Yeah.
What if the seller refuses to pay? How often does the seller refuse to pay you at the closing table?
Well, they don't.
Why?
Okay,
Because you have a contract.
Contract.
Why would the buyer refuse to pay you at the closing table if you have a contract?
Well, I mean, it's a little bit different there.
No, it's not different.
The attorney's
We're-
taking the money and.
You're worrying about, then you didn't do your deal, you didn't, shh, they can't hear at home. If your buyer gets to the closing table and refuses to pay, shame on you, because you didn't do the right job up front saying, this is what I do to earn my fee. And I'm gonna do that, you're gonna pay. Now, I'll come back to her question, which was, but what if my buyer can't pay? Well, let's go to the buyer agency agreement. Y'all stole all my paperwork when I was gone. It's like the remote at home. Who moved the remote? Let's go back to the buyer's agency agreement. And the buyer's agency agreement clearly says, Mr. and Ms. Buyer, oh, by the way, if the seller pays me, now you're saying you can't afford it, all right? What are you telling me that you only want to see properties where the seller is paying the fee? Well, yeah, I don't have that money. Okay, and you just limited your pool of houses. You realize you just, I don't know what percentage, and I cannot search by that. So this is exactly the same conversation as we've had forever with the first time. Well, I just want to go look at houses. Let me get you the mortgage company, see what you call it. Oh, no, I just want to go look at houses. And you've got to learn this presentation. You see this lady right here. You go out and you show her houses this afternoon, and she's going to find the dream home of her life. And she's going to fall in love with it. And when we get you to the mortgage company and you don't qualify for this home, how's it going to work out?
Right. Especially when she's gotta go down $200,000 in value.
Yeah, you know, you're just not even close. And why would I spend my time working with you? I'll have to tell you this story, because it's true.
Like nothing else.
Like nothing else. Years and years and years ago, when I was a listing and selling agent, some of my wife's family came from Chicago, and the whole family was going to White Lake for the day. And Aunt Crazy said, I'm not going.
Ain't crazy.
Aunt Crazy. I'll entertain myself somehow. So everybody goes to White Lake. We played down there, ate hot dogs and watermelon, had a big time, came back sunburned. And there's Aunt Crazy just as happy as she can be. What have you done all day? I have seen the most magnificent properties you have ever imagined. Excuse me? I called an agent this morning and told him I was in town looking for $1 million properties. I've seen 9 houses.
Oh, she did.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did.
She did not know you were an agent.
Oh, yeah. It didn't matter. I wasn't gonna go short. She couldn't afford the lunch. She couldn't afford the lunch. She wasn't buying. She was just being entertained.
Oh, my God.
And I can promise you, 1,000 of us we've all worked with somebody that at the end of the day, you went, oh, no. Not tomorrow. This ain't happening tomorrow. Here's the card of an agent across town that I really don't like. All right. I lost control. I got questions. All right. Question is, will the yes, no response for seller's concession show up in the MLS? Yes. There will be a toggle and it'll say yes or no. And if it says yes, you might want to call the agent, because it might be a $3,000 carpet allowance. It might be a new refrigerator. It might be a commission. I don't know. I don't
So
care.
we're not allowed to do descriptions that
No.
say anything about carpet
No.
allowance
No.
or anything like that,
All right.
that's.
Please do not put any commissions in these comments. I don't care what your fee is, neither does anybody else. Question, if my fee is X and they don't want to pay it, would it be? I ain't answering this question. So questions are, if the buyer agrees what you're gonna be paid, they are now your client.
Yep.
If that changes in any way, they have to agree to it.
Yep.
No question. If you get paid more, great. If the buyer agrees, you can take it. If you get paid less from the seller, then they have to pay the difference, or you agree to take less. But the agreement comes from you and your client, the buyer. I've got a whole bit on agency that we probably should play with, because we don't understand agency anymore. But the simple is, your contractual agreement with your seller is identical to the contractual agreement with the buyer. There is no difference. You owe that buyer loyalty, honesty, financial, all those things. Fiduciary duties. Yes, sir.
Do you think it would be acceptable to have in the additional provisions a blurb that says, I just made this up, so I made it just a little bit.
I've been making it up all afternoon, man.
But if it says, if seller or listing firm agrees to pay buyer agent.
Where are you? Are you in the MLS?
No, the
No.
buyer agent, in the buyer agency agreement, the buyer.
In the buyer's agency agreement,
In the additional provisions section.
all right? Keep
So
going.
if I write on there, if seller or listing firm agrees to pay the buyer agent a higher compensation than what is agreed to in paragraph, whatever. Buyer agrees.
The question is, if I write stuff in the comments on the buyer's agency agreement, can I do that? And the answer is, if your attorney advises you to do that.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna discuss what you can and what you can't write in there. But if you have legal counsel and they say, sure, write that in there. And if the buyer agrees to it, it's a contract and it's binding. All right. So, yes.
Isn't that, last week in the briefing we went to, isn't that what Form 150 was for? If you were getting commission above or beyond what was on the buyer's agent, you had put it on the 150?
Yes, there was a couple of other forms that the attorney talked about. The Form 150, I think, changes the commissions between you and the buyers. So yeah, you can go to the 150, or you can write a new buyer's agency agreement. Or I think the 150 would be cleaner. I haven't ever played
Can I
with
say
that.
one thing about concessions?
All right, concession.
Yeah, all right, when the seller concession, this is from the mortgage point of view.
All right, from the mortgage people in the room, concessions. Yeah.
English, but we talk the same language.
Yeah.
So when I say concessions on, as far as the loan product. I know-
Loan product,
Right.
yes.
These fees that they're paying over do not, which is good, this is good news for you. They're not part of the 6% or the 4% that they can only pay as far as sales
That's
concessions.
right.
They're outside of that. So you don't have to worry about counting, like, are they paying this much and then they're gonna pay this, like.
Or you're talking about buyer's agency fees paid by the buyer?
Yes,
All right,
yes.
so-
That's not part of our loan product.
All right, let me clarify for those at home and for make sure I'm hearing what you think you're saying. Depending on the type of loan,
Yes.
there are limits on what the seller can pay in concessions
Correct.
to the buyer, or so I can give you a certain amount for carpet or this, but there are limits, a
Right.
percentage of sales price or loan amount or whatever. And the buyer's agency fee is not part of
It's
that.
not.
Did that make sense? I hope
Yes,
so.
it is.
So, yes, and you are absolutely correct. And that's an important
Yeah.
point, because there are limitations on what Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loan
Said it.
process can allow the seller to concede to the buyer. Buyer's agency fees are not part of that.
I'm assuming with the exception of that USDA where it can get lumped in there.
US,
Well, I mean, as far as paying that, yes, it can get lumped in there, but that's not part of sales.
No. That's
Uh,
the buyer.
And the question from the outside the room is, can we search for the yes, no for sellers concessions? No. It's not gonna be a search field. Because that might come too close to the rule that says you cannot search for commissions. If an attorney ever came here and said, we're gonna sue you because they're hiding commission, you're not gonna be able to search for the yes, no field. All right, so now we have the 220. We know how to get it in the hands of other agents, but we need to answer a few questions. And one of the questions is, why would the seller want to pay a buyer's agent? So I'm gonna have some fun with you. Let's see, what time are we finished, boy? Let's spend the next few minutes. I'm actually ahead of myself today because I left a section out, but that's all right. Y'all don't know which section. And y'all are a fun group. So let's do this. I got 3 questions. Y'all are question number 1. At home, you get to play this game. Question number 1. Why would the seller want to pay a fee to the buyer's agent?
They don't bring the buyer.
All right. Y'all are gonna get together and you're gonna figure it out as a group. And at home, if you wanna play, part of you can, well, y'all aren't all in the same place at home. So you'll have to play this game by yourself. Here's number 2, the middle of the room. Why would the seller not wanna pay the buyer's agent a fee? So y'all have to get together and come up with 10 reasons why. 10, there's gotta be 10. Y'all have 10. 3, here comes you guys. Why would the buyer want to pay their agent instead of having the seller to do it?
Say that again.
Why would the buyer want to pay their agent instead of having the seller do it? And I'll give y'all a bonus question. This is bonus at home, comes with double points. Y'all get 3.5. Why would the buyer not want to pay their agent? All right, so your job, why would the seller pay? 10 reasons. Your job, why would the seller not want to pay? Your job is buyers both sides. Why would they want to pay and not? Y'all turn your chairs around, get in a group. Everybody at home, get in a group. If you don't have a group, find the dog, talk to them. But these are the 4 questions that are going to come up at both the seller interview
Okay.
or the buyer interview. We'll be back in 10. If you got questions, put them in the chat. I'm gonna mute, so y'all don't have to hear all this.
As a buyer, we're not going to pay twice.
We don't sell, but why is not a seller, why is it seller? Because the buyer needs to hear their own expenses.
Yeah, just like going to money. Yeah. I don't think what I.
So I don't think I don't.
It's always. It doesn't have
Yes, I'm using you on purpose. All right, so we're back and I'm gonna let the folks at home. Do what? 10 is a lot. Y'all didn't get 10? The people at home have already done all the work, so let's hang on. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna let those of you at home do the. Why should the seller pay a fee to a buyer's agent? All right. And I had to go get my other glasses so I could read all their comments. And I'm gonna scroll. Don't look, it'll be a surprise for you. All right. So I have some number 2s. I don't need 3s. I need no 1. Buyers. Did I mute you on purpose? Yes. Buyers. I want to mute. All right. The sellers might want to see what a buyer's agent request was before agreeing to a fee. Oops, that should be number 2. I should have read that. Can I do all of these at once, or will that get confusing? So I do the seller's pay. Okay, we're coming back to the classroom because I'm lost online. I promised to read all your comments. Your group, the seller, was supposed to pay a fee to the buyer's agent. Why would why would the seller ever want to pay a buyer's agent fee?
One more way. Because.
Zion, bam,
Because.
your turn's coming, girl. I'm telling you.
Because if the agent explains it the right way, educates them the right way, it gives them like an incentive to drive more buyers to their property.
To attract buyers, even the poor ones that can't afford to pay. All right, what else?
And what she was saying.
Right, that because you're attracting more buyers, the seller could earn more money because you can get multiple offers.
Oh, with more buyers, the seller might even make more money because we're gonna get in a multiple offer, multiple bid situation. Ah, that's a good answer on the Family Feud. Good answer.
It could also, decrease the amount of time on the market, which would also increase profitability because the seller's not having to pay all these mortgage payments and utility costs and all of them.
Good answer, good answer. All right. And this is something we very rarely talk about. If you reduce the time on the market, there's carrying costs. So if I sit on the market 6 months, I got 6 months of mortgage payments, 6 months of taxes, insurance, homeowners, power, and I got a job waiting on me in Kansas City and I can't get there. That costs us money. And one of the things as a great agent at a listing presentation, you should do a seller's net proceeds sheet and talk about what it looks like if you sit here for 6 months.
Yeah.
Oh, that was good. Didn't you like that at home? All right, in the Family Feud, we're going to, there we go. I wish y'all could see them. Into this. And there is no, you're not on television and there's not really a game going on, but they love it.
And what that does is, okay, I would tell my seller, hey, look, do you wanna sell this house now? Or you wanna wait for 6 months, it doesn't sell, and then you wind up coming back and selling it what you should have sold it for 6 months ago, let's do it now.
Let's do it now. Put the price on it, put the fee in it, and sell this bad boy now. Because you might have to come back later and everybody knows what happens to a house that's been on the market, sat on the market. Now we got, and now, oh my goodness, now we're willing to pay a buyer. You got to do a better job talking to your seller. Why should the seller pay?
We don't have 10.
1, 2, 3, 4.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
10 is a lot. Okay. Wait a minute. You what? Top 4 are on the board. Y'all do watch these shows. All right. Now let's read through the responses. Can I repeat the responses out loud? Where the reason a seller would want to pay is it attracts buyers. More buyers that come to a property might get in a multiple offer situation. It decreases the time on the market. And if we set the price, set the fee, sell this bad boy now, we don't have to carry it for the next 6 months. Hang on. I gotta go to the online. When the market shifts back to a buyer's market. See, those of you who are new, this is not a normal market. This is not normal. There is not even close. And multiple offer, I remember listing houses, you'd have birthday parties. You know, they've been on the market a year.
Right.
And the sign has stood there until it rusted off the bottom. Y'all done. I remember when the markets were so tough, they would buy the Saint Joseph statues
I'm very back up.
and bury them in the backyard upside down. There was something about,
I've already done that.
you've already done that. What? And if it is real. All right, let's go back.
Wow.
When the market shifts back to a buyer's market, the sellers will be more willing to pay a fee to the buyer's agent to facilitate a sale. Absolutely. That market dynamic is not changing. Broader market, more marketable. Jennifer Lockhart. Thank you, Jennifer. This is currently a seller's market. Sellers are not going to really want to pay a buyer's agent, give up proceeds. Sellers will happily pay a commission amount. I'm gonna leave the buyer comments until we get to that side. Oh, you've come up with another one while we were talking?
Final answer.
Final answer.
So if you have your household.
Wait a minute, I'm still reading. I can't do both. I am a one-trick pony. I'm doing the best I can with what I came with. I think I covered a lot of them. All right.
So if you have, if the listing agent has the house on the market and the buyer goes directly to the listing agent, the seller may not want the listing agent to be a dual agent and say, let them get their own person and we'll pay the commission.
Ooh, I like that. An unrepresented.
Yeah.
Good answer, good answer.
That was a good answer. I'm gonna get home tonight, and my wife's gonna say, how was your afternoon class? I think maybe we ought to watch some Family Feud. And I can explain how my class went this afternoon. And those of you at home, you're missing it. Okay, if it's an unrepresented buyer.
Yeah.
Think about the liability that your seller has when a buyer comes direct to the listing agent and says, I'm an unrepresented buyer, you don't have to pay me. I don't need I don't need anybody to pay my fee. I'll work with you as an unrepresented buyer. Now, here's the problem. You, the listing agent, agreed to work with them. Do I have to write an offer? Yes. Let me sit down and help you write an offer. You've already crossed the line.
Yeah.
Comes time for inspections. Let me help you get inspections done. Oh, I'm just working to help my seller close. You just crossed the line. The appraisal comes back short. The this or that. Any negotiation. Tell me about your finances. We are now in undisclosed dual agency, and we got a problem.
Yeah.
So working, and I have firms in this town that absolutely refuse to work with an unrepresented buyer. They will send them to another firm because I don't want to be responsible for what I tell you. Now, a question came up, and I'm gonna do it right here because it's on my mind. In our legal briefing the other day, a question came up. There's a showing service where I can hire an agent from across town to show properties to my clients. Number one, why would you ever turn your client over to somebody else?
But you don't know.
Yeah. And number two, if you pay that agent across town to show your client, they are now your sub agent. I don't care what the agreement out of Colorado says, they're your sub agent in the state of North Carolina, and you're liable for whatever they tell them. So that an agent from across town shows your buyer a house. Well, does the refrigerator stay? Oh, yeah. What kind of heat is it? Gas. How old's the roof? 3 years. You are now liable.
Yep.
So working with unrepresented buyers sounds like an easy fix until you realize your E&O won't cover you. You might be open for liability suit. That gets real squirrely real fast. All right. We good?
Yeah.
This is a good list.
Very good.
But y'all didn't do 10.
And some may feel like they have more leverage if they know that the buyer can't really afford it. So if they're gonna pay it, they may feel like they have a little bit more leverage.
The seller might feel like they have more leverage if the buyer couldn't actually pay the fee, but now yeah, whatever you said, that thing that she said. Yeah. I get it now.
That's what turning music down.
Yeah.
That's what passed on.
I have no idea what we're doing. All right, second question. Why, and this is for this group, that rowdy group's already said, y'all are wrong. Why would the seller,
Why should they not?
should they not pay a buyer's agent fees. Why should the seller not?
To receive more of a profit from the sale.
More profit, yeah. I get more money out of the sale. I save half the commission or whatever split there was.
Feel like the buyer should carry their own cost, or be responsible for their own
The-
part of that.
Buyers should carry their own costs for the purchase of the house. Yeah, you're going into the big boy game here. You're playing in the major leagues. You can bet in the battery, buy a house, call up some green, all right?
Market changes, supply and demand is gonna really rule that.
Market changes, supply and demand.
Yeah.
And I am a huge proponent of understanding supply and demand in the marketplace. If you spend much time with me, you know that. And the markets are going to shift. We can already see inventory building a little bit. Now I can tell you, interest rates are still in the sevens. Where are we at? Are we in the sixes? The low sixes.
We are.
Here, hang on. This is what's wrong with the internet, because I saw a headline that said interest rates get further away from 7%. And the first line made it sound like it had gone back up, and I'm like,
Look at the 10-year treasury.
10-year treasury is,
We were down to 4.2 something, and it was at 4.1 something this morning. So a lot of times markets will look at that.
oh, the
treasury
markets
and start-
always follow the
Okay,
treasury.
so it's starting to fall,
Yeah,
right?
so market 10-year treasury
Yeah,
is
so
at
it was
4.2.
Used to be like, it would be like two over maybe.
Yeah.
It used to be. Yeah,
Yeah, the margin, the spread.
Like two, when I say two over, so let's say it's 4.2, so it's gonna be 6.2.
Yeah.
So if we're at 4.1, we're looking at
6.1. So here's what's gonna happen. As interest rates tick down into the sixes and if they crack the fives, buyers are coming back.
Yeah.
Because they're cooped up in apartments and all this stuff. So that inventory that we've got built up, gonna go
But
away.
even now,
Now,
you should be calling your bias.
you should be calling buyers.
Because when interest rates come down, then there's.
They're gonna flood the market.
I can put a deal
Now,
now.
let me give y'all a warning.
Yeah.
This is an election year. And elections always stop market. So late September,
Yeah, scared.
people go, wait, let me just wait.
Yeah. we'll see what
And
happens.
you'll see the market shrink. They'll come right back after the election because now we know where we're going for the next 4 years. And it doesn't matter where we're going, it matters, everybody goes, now I'll just wait. And so as interest rates come down, so let me come back to this. Why should they not pay? Market changes. Oh, and you just hit on one. If the interest rates fall, the buyer has less money in the transaction. So the value, when interest rates go down, the value of houses go up.
Yeah.
Do you understand that?
Yeah.
Because the cost of a payment got cheaper. So if it's $100,000 property at 6%, I can give you more, it's the same payment. I didn't say all that right, but the payment on 100,000 at 6%
Yeah.
would be the same payment at a $90,000 house at 6.5, say.
Yeah.
I'm just guessing.
Right.
You understand? Because we're buying a payment. They're basically buying a payment. Cash buyers don't care and all that, but in most of our market, we're dealing with, they're buying the payment. So as the interest rates fall, the value of your house goes up. That's still not a reason not to pay, but it was a good idea.
But
it's a good
Well-
way to tell buyers to buy.
It's a good way to sell buyers to buy now, but let's stay here. Why should the seller not pay?
They don't have enough
Because they're
equity.
educated enough now to know that they're not obligated to.
All right, so now we have educated our sellers enough to know that they don't have to pay. And they're gonna ask you as an agent at the kitchen table, and you better be, and then the reason we're doing these, you gotta be prepared, because under the hot breath of a seller is not the time for original thought. You better have figured this out before you get to the kitchen table, because right there, you're gonna go,
Well.
and to quote her, you'll figure it out on the way home. With your contracts in your briefcase and not the listing
Right.
anymore. Why should sellers not pay?
They don't have enough
They don't have enough equity. We assume all the sellers are rich. We don't have enough equity.
Especially if they refinance that 8% loan that they bought, and then all of a sudden, they don't have any equity.
Yeah, we just did a refi, cash out, we spend it on a car, we don't have the
You
money.
would not believe how many sellers took and went into their houses
Oh.
with these good interest rates and refinance so that they could borrow money off of their
Yeah.
house, and they lost that 2-3%.
Oh, yeah.
Now they're paying 6.5, so they were like, but I needed the money.
Yeah.
It's good if you're paying off credit card debt because that is a higher interest rate. So if you weigh it up, that's way better.
Okay, hang on.
That way.
All
Yeah.
right,
So,
now let's go to the
Yeah.
hardest one. Now, I gave y'all the hardest question.
You did,
Now, there's no question about it.
right.
And I knew when I looked over here. When I looked over into this corner of the room, let me get back on camera. When I looked into this, I looked over there and I said, those are the most intelligent people in the room. Just by, now they're better looking, but y'all are the most. Y'all are the most intelligent, so I gave them the hardest question. And the question is, why should the buyer? Please don't take anything I say today seriously. Where was it? Why should the buyer pay their agent?
So one of the things that we've talked about, and it was a hard question, better service.
Well, yeah, we get better service.
Pay for it.
You get what you pay for. Y'all can help if you need to. Go ahead. What else?
And the next one we had would be a better variety of homes, to where we're not having to decide they're not paying over here, so.
You get to see the whole market.
Right.
I like it. All right, so we're not limiting you to just the homes that are, I like
That
that.
are paying.
I like that.
Negotiation.
We're in a better negotiation here. Ooh. I don't know when I lost control. All right, I like that one. It puts the buyer in a much better negotiating position. We're not asking the seller to pay these fees for us and all, so, yeah. That was it? Pretty much it? Okay, now we'll go to the viewers at home and see, because they had a bunch on the buyer. Ooh, a buyer would, ooh. Yeah, a buyer will want to pay a buyer's agent because dual agency gets complicated. Absolutely. Ooh.
I like the.
Hey, y'all are good at home. Y'all must have been paying attention. Now. Ooh, and why would they, now there's a second part of this question. Why would they not want to pay? Let's see if I can do two at a time here. Why would they not want to pay? And the viewers at home said, because the agent didn't show their value. Oh, that's good. If you don't show your value,
I think they listen to the Bernard podcast.
no pay. I like that.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we have. Thelma Bishop, you did good, girl. We need to get you on the live TV show next time. All right, Trina says they don't see the value, or the agent doesn't provide value during the first few meetings, or they can't afford it. So if they're not going to pay, they just simply cannot afford it. And that's a reality. And they asked online, so I'm going to try and repeat this. I made a statement, or we were talking about it. And so you sit down with the buyer, you do your buyer counseling session, and we say, tell me what you want. I want a house, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage in this price range. And if they don't bring it up, do you want the seller to pay the fee, my fee? Well, that becomes a part of the search criteria. So you want a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, brick ranch, 2-car garage, under 300,000, where the seller is paying the fee. Is that what you're telling me? Well, that becomes your search criteria. Well, you can't search the fee, but you can search the house, and now we sift and sort. You may have to call agents and look for the 220s, and you go, well, these 3 won't pay. Well, grandma died and left us some money, and okay, now the truth comes out. You do have the money to pay me, and this is your house of the dreams, and you'll cough it up. Yes, ma'am.
So we won't be able to do the reverse search. You know how they did the reverse search?
A reverse
Looking for
search.
Concession.
Yeah, you're not gonna be able to do a reverse search. You're not gonna be able to search for commissions in any way, shape, fashion, or form. You will have to contact the listing agent.
So the concession field syndicate over to other websites.
The concession field, will it communicate like to Zillow, and it'll just have a yes, no toggle? Are there seller concessions? Yes.
Okay, like if I'm setting up a listing card and one of the search criteria is concessions. So then you know how you set it up and then it goes out automatically? It's just sending you properties that have concessions.
Right.
Now, with the reverse search, it will alert the listings agents of people that are looking at their listings that are looking for concession only.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
No. I don't understand reverse search. Is that in our MLS? I don't run the MLS. Debbie knows all.
Yeah.
Prospecting.
Yeah.
I'm still lost. But it's all right.
Get out of the way.
My brain moved on. All right, they didn't see the value of the agent. Let's see. They don't have enough equity. Yeah, coming out of pocket. That was the seller. I can only think of one reason the seller doesn't want to pay, and that's to save money.
The buyer's agent does not work for them.
Say it again.
The buyer's agent don't work for them.
The buyer's agent doesn't work for the seller.
That's why the seller wouldn't want to pay.
That's why the seller wouldn't want to pay them. Yeah.
I'm not gonna pay the guy who's negotiating everything
Against me.
Interest.
Right. It'd be like hiring an attorney for the other side and paying the other side's attorney. And I'll quote what our attorney John Waite said the other day. He said, if you go to court and the other side has an attorney, you need an attorney. And if you get into the courtroom of negotiating real estate and the other side has an agent, you need an agent in your corner. I mean, your knowledge and expertise is the key to your future, and we got to sell our ability. Yes, ma'am.
But when some people feel like it's a conflict of interest if your attorney is paying my attorney.
Right. That's why we lost the lawsuit. If you're the statement is, wouldn't it be a conflict of interest if my attorney is paying your attorney to defend you? All right, we're about ready for a break. I want to check, see if I've got all the comments. Oh man, the people at home are moving faster than I am. We have 8 new messages. Y'all are killing me out there. Y'all know how rough it is to do this and to keep up with these yahoos and y'all. Oh my God, they wrote a book.
They did.
All right. So if commissions are not, I'm sorry, Wendy, I didn't mean to say you wrote a book. If commissions are not part of the loan, but we have shared compensation information with the lender to verify if the buyer can afford to pay the buyer's agent compensation, then the buyer uses cash from the drawer or mattress or a family member. Will it mess up their loan?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. This is like buying a car the week before. So a buyer's agent compensation absolutely has to be disclosed to the mortgage company.
So we put it on the 1003 when they're doing an application.
Yep.
So we put it on there as a simple liability. So meaning when it's time of closing, cash to close, we verify those funds, but that is to be paid, meaning at closing. So we have to verify that they have that money in the bank.
And you would have to verify that they would have the
Yeah.
buyer's agent fee
Yes,
in
yeah, that's
the.
what we would
Right.
include it.
I hope that answers your question. Yeah, and I have lenders in the room and thank goodness
Don't
we
you
do.
think that's kind of disqualifying a lot of buyers?
You'd be surprised, like you said, they come up with money, like, when they wanna buy something. Now,
They-
some of them
you'd
are
be
not
surprised how where they
educated.
have it stashed.
They can buy a $11 house and they can't buy butter,
Oh, yeah.
but there are times that they know, they're pretty prepared.
All right, two more and then we gotta take a break. If the seller may not pay because the seller feels their home is in excellent condition, has an excellent price. Doesn't every seller think their home is the greatest seller? And the buyer says it's the seller's responsibility to pay for the cost of selling their home. Okay, we agree with that. Buyer says it's the seller's responsibility. Well, the seller is paying the seller's agent, but would they pay the buyer's agent? I got 3:20 and I ran over the break and I do apologize. I know some of you. Can we take 5 minutes?